Boundaries. When to Say Yes, How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend is a widely regarded self-help book that focuses on the concept of personal boundaries. The book helps readers understand how to establish and maintain healthy boundaries in their personal and professional lives. Introduction to Boundaries. Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend begin the book by explaining the importance of boundaries in life. Boundaries, they explain, are invisible lines that separate an individual from others. These lines help define what is acceptable and what is not, what you are responsible for and what you are not responsible for. Healthy boundaries allow people to take control of their lives and make room for personal growth, while unhealthy boundaries can lead to feelings of resentment, stress, and a lack of fulfillment. The authors explain that boundaries are particularly important for people who often feel overwhelmed or taken advantage of by others. These individuals frequently have trouble saying no to others, and as a result, they end up taking on more than they can handle. The book sets out to help readers develop boundaries that protect their emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Chapter 1. What are boundaries? The first chapter introduces the concept of boundaries. Boundaries define where one person ends and another begins. They are necessary to protect your sense of ownership over your feelings, behaviors, and choices. Just as a physical property has fences or markers to show ownership, personal boundaries help mark off emotional, psychological, and relational property. Cloud and Townsend emphasize that boundaries are not walls. While walls shut people out, boundaries protect what is inside and allow healthy interaction. Proper boundaries allow you to love freely and maintain control of your life, creating a healthy balance between autonomy and connection with others. Chapter 2. Boundaries and Responsibility. In this chapter, the authors explore the concept of personal responsibility. Each individual is responsible for their own actions, feelings, attitudes, and choices. Boundaries help us understand what is ours to manage and what is someone else's. It is crucial to recognize that while we can care for others and empathize with their struggles, we are not responsible for fixing their problems. The authors clarify that being responsible to others, being kind, compassionate, and loving, is different from being responsible for others, taking on their problems, emotions, or behaviors. This distinction helps individuals maintain their boundaries while still showing love and support to others. Chapter 3. Boundary Problems. The third chapter examines common boundary problems, focusing on the different ways people struggle with setting and maintaining boundaries. The authors categorize these into 4 types of people. 1. The compliance. These individuals have weak boundaries and struggle to say no. They often fear rejection, guilt, or disapproval from others. As a result, they end up taking on too much, leading to burnout and resentment. 2. The avoidance. Avoidants tend to set rigid boundaries and have trouble saying yes to help, even when they need it. They isolate themselves emotionally and physically, often out of fear of being vulnerable or dependent on others. 3. The controllers. Controllers have difficulty respecting other people's boundaries. They manipulate or coerce others to get their way, disregarding others' limits or needs. Controllers can be either aggressive, directly violating others' boundaries, or passive, indirectly manipulating through guilt or pressure. 4. The non-responsives. Non-responsives fail to recognize the needs of others. They lack empathy and either ignore the boundaries of those around them or expect others to take care of them without reciprocating. Each type of boundary problem comes with specific challenges, and the authors provide insights into how individuals can begin to address these issues. Chapter 4. The 10 Laws of Boundaries. This chapter introduces 10 foundational principles, referred to as the laws of boundaries, that govern how people can successfully establish and maintain boundaries in their lives. Some of these key laws include: 1. The law of sowing and reaping. People must face the natural consequences of their actions. When we protect others from the consequences of their choices, we prevent them from learning and growing. 2. The law of responsibility. While we are responsible for ourselves, we are responsible to others in a loving and supportive manner. This law helps clarify the distinction between caring and rescuing. 3. The law of power. We do not have the power to control others, but we do have the power to control our own actions and responses. Change starts with taking ownership of what we can control, ourselves. 4. The law of respect. If we want others to respect our boundaries, we must also respect theirs. This mutual respect fosters healthier relationships. 5. The law of motivation. People need to set boundaries out of a healthy sense of self-worth, rather than out of guilt, fear, or obligation. True boundaries are set from a place of empowerment. 6. The law of envy. Envy focuses on what others have and leads to boundary confusion. People must focus on what they truly want and work towards it rather than envying others' success. Chapter 5. Myths about boundaries. In this chapter, the authors address several misconceptions that people have about boundaries, which can make it difficult to set them. Some of the common myths include: boundaries are selfish. Setting boundaries is often viewed as self-centered or uncaring. The authors explain that boundaries are not about selfishness but about self-care. Without them, people are unable to function well and, ultimately, cannot love others effectively. Boundaries hurt others. Many people fear that setting boundaries will cause others to feel hurt or angry. While boundaries may initially cause discomfort, they are necessary for healthy relationships. It is better to be clear about one's limits than to build resentment over time. Boundaries mean cutting people off. Some believe that establishing boundaries requires them to sever relationships. However, boundaries are about maintaining relationships in a healthy, balanced way. Chapter 6. Boundary Development. The authors explain that boundaries are formed during childhood and early adolescence. Parental relationships are crucial in teaching children how to develop a sense of self and appropriate boundaries. However, when children experience neglect, overprotection, or enmeshment, blurred boundaries between family members, they may struggle to set boundaries as adults. Cloud and Townsend encourage readers to reflect on their upbringing to understand how their current boundaries were shaped. By doing so, individuals can begin to address and heal any unhealthy patterns. Chapter 7. Boundaries in your family. In this chapter, the authors emphasize that family relationships are often where boundary problems begin, and they can be the most difficult to address. Patterns of enabling, overstepping, or controlling often emerge within families, making it challenging to establish and enforce boundaries with parents, siblings, or other relatives. Cloud and Townsend offer practical advice for handling boundary issues in family dynamics. They stress the importance of clear communication and assertiveness when dealing with family members who may resist the establishment of new boundaries. Chapter 8. Boundaries in work. The authors discuss the importance of setting boundaries in professional settings. They note that many people struggle with work-life balance, often sacrificing personal time and health for career advancement or to meet others' expectations. Without boundaries at work, individuals may experience burnout, frustration, or a sense of being overwhelmed. Key strategies for setting boundaries in the workplace include learning to say no to unreasonable demands, managing time effectively, and communicating clearly with colleagues and supervisors about limits. Chapter 9. Boundaries and Friendship. Boundaries are essential in friendships, where the lines between giving and receiving can sometimes blur. Cloud and Townsend explain that friendship should be reciprocal and that healthy boundaries allow for mutual respect and support. Friends should not take advantage of each other's time, energy, or resources. The authors also explore how to deal with friends who violate boundaries, providing guidance on how to have difficult conversations and maintain the integrity of the relationship without enabling unhealthy behavior. Chapter 10. Boundaries in Marriage. In marriage, boundaries are critical for maintaining intimacy and individuality. While the bond between spouses is deep, each partner must retain their sense of self to avoid dependency or codependency. Cloud and Townsend argue that healthy marriages require both love and freedom, where each partner respects the other's boundaries. Chapter 11. Boundaries and Children. Parents are responsible for teaching children about boundaries. This chapter provides guidance on how to set boundaries with children in a way that is loving, firm, and consistent. Boundaries help children understand consequences and develop a sense of responsibility. Conclusion. The final chapters of the book emphasize the importance of practicing and maintaining boundaries as part of a lifelong journey. Boundaries allow individuals to take control of their lives, create healthier relationships, and experience emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being. The process of setting boundaries may be uncomfortable at first, but it is ultimately liberating and empowering. In summary, Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend is a practical guide to developing healthy boundaries in various aspects of life, from relationships to work, family, and personal well-being. By learning to say no when necessary and protecting your emotional space, you gain control over your life and contribute to healthier, more fulfilling relationships.